Want the best way to shop online? Click kccars.com. Want thousands of vehicles at the lowest prices? Click kccars.com. For McCarthy's brand new Chevys, Toyotas, Nissans, Hyundais, and certified and quality pre-owned vehicles all in one place. Over 1,400 new cars and trucks and 500 pre-owned all at your fingertips. Click kccars.com for the McCarthy Auto Group with over 2,000 new and pre-owned vehicles from the ease of your computer, tablet, or phone 24/7. Log on today. kccars.com.
Joining us here in the RacinBoys studios, David Grubnic, Australian driver who picked up a win at Heartland Park Topeka last year after a long dry spell. David, first of all, thanks for taking the time to join us here in the McCarthy Auto Group studios in lovely Independence.
Oh, you bet, guys. Thank you so much for having me on the show. These are great. I love doing these things.
Yeah. So last year, Kirk and I were up there all day, and, when I left there, I felt your enthusiasm because, after having a long dry streak and then picking up that win, and as a driver, I raced for many years, you wonder, when is that next one, or is that next one going to come? Talk about Heartland Park Topeka last year and what that win meant to you after such a long dry spell.
Well, yes, exactly. And so, there's a saying out there that sort of like, and I was told this, right, after, because my first win came at Heartland Park in 2005.
Right,
So,
right.
I was the first non-North American to win a national event in Top Fuel. And so, and then that win took that was my 13th or 12th final round. So, I was a bridesmaid for so long before we actually broke through and got that win. So, we went through, that was in 2005, and then it was sort of like, the floodgates are going to open. Once you get your first win, it's all good. I'm thinking, well, okay, well, that's great, something to look forward to. And then next year we went out, we won Gainesville. So, that's like our Daytona 500. So I was thinking, well, this is fantastic. We're starting to get wins, we're moving along, everything's great. And then it was next year, nothing. And then it's sort of like, oh, hang on, what's going on? Then it got to the point after 3 or 4 years, I wanted to shoot the person that told me that. It's sort of like these wins just start coming and coming. But,
right. That old saying, they come in bunches after you get the first one, and that's not always necessarily the case.
And it's not always the case. And then, but here's the deal. You can never, ever give up hope. When you come to these national events, right, the last thing you want to do is come in there with a defeatist attitude, or we're not going to win, or, we're not going to do this, we're not going to do that. And I've learned this over the years that, in any sort of professional sport, the psychological aspect is extremely, extremely important. So whenever you come into these events, you got to believe you can be number one qualifier, and you got to believe you can win the event. If you come in there doubting that, right, you will go up there and it will bite you. You will lose.
Right.
So, the hard part is to hanging on to that belief. So coming into Topeka last year, after all these years of hanging on and hanging on and hanging on, and then we were, and you'll always get this carrot. You always get these good runs. You get these, these round wins that helps
teasers.
That belief. Correct. Well, they're teasers, but they're also at the same time confidence
motivators.
build. Yes, exactly. So, coming into Topeka last year, going rounds, we were up against Spencer Massey, good, strong running car. But so was my car; it was running good. And then also I'm involved with Conrad, and I remember him sitting there, and he was looking at the setup. He knew what Spencer's car could run, and he knew what we could do. And he even said to me, he says, "Davey, I'm not going to push this. We're going to go down the racetrack." Right, and we can push
good
it if we
solid
want.
pass without taking too many chances.
Right, exactly. And he said, and if he outruns us, but I'm not going to smoke the tires. We are going to go out and give this the best shot. And, I said, Connie, that's the best plan. Let's just go up there and see what happens. And, I hit the throttle and we left. I was happy. I was happy with my light. After years of driving these things,
you
when you're late.
Right.
Yeah, And, it wasn't like, well, I missed it, but, it was raceable and tolerable. So... and I was going down the racetrack. I could feel Spencer there. He was right beside me. And we're going. And then as you go through the finish line, you see that win light, and it lit up. And I'm telling you, fellas, it just, it's just an instant smile and relief is what it is.
I use the saying in my daughter. I've preached it to him for years and years. Success is going from failure to failure without losing enthusiasm.
There you go.
Winston Churchill, by the way, if you ever want to use that in the future.
Yes, actually, I will use that. That's very good.
Because that was the case, really, right there. Yes. Keeping the enthusiasm, knowing that next win is going to come, but without doubting yourself and your team, and just keeping everybody motivated. And how much is that of your job, keeping your guys that are building the car, everybody. You got to keep them motivated, not only yourself, but you got to kind of pump up the team as well, don't you?
You know what? That's exactly right. That's right, and it revolves around the drivers, the crew chiefs, because in our sport we're the opposite of Cup, right? So we're on the racetrack for 4 seconds. We're in the pits for 60 minutes. They're on the racetrack for like 40 minutes or whatever it is. Right. Hopefully they're on the racetrack
more
for 40
one-on-one time with your crew.
Right, but then they come in and they get their tyre changed and they're gone. So we rely heavily on our crew, right? They have to pull that race car apart, and they pull apart, I don't know the exact number, but let's say it's probably 3,000 moving parts or nuts and bolts and everything else that they got to pull apart.
Probably more than that, but yeah.
And they have to put it together perfectly every time. So, the guys are very important. Our enthusiasm is very important. So, yes, I have to believe it, then that has to be expressed to them. And it's also, even with Conrad, he comes there with that. Right. He's been doing it long enough that, he's been through all that and he understands it as well. But you're absolutely right. It's very important to keep our crew motivated, all of us, the whole team. It's a team effort. It's not just a driver or a crew chief and so forth. It's everybody has to have that attitude.
Right.
David Grubnic joining us. He's the defending Top Fuel winner at the Kansas Nationals coming up here this weekend. Coletta Motorsports, 10 wins in Top Fuel, and that includes Scott Coletta, who won 6 out of 8 back in the mid-'90s. We'll remember that combination that Scott Coletta and Dick LaHaye had 2 championships through those years. Why is Coletta so strong at this racetrack with 3 different drivers?
And that's and I've been asked that question quite a bit, and to be honest, I really don't know the right answer. But here's the thing that if you take one of these cars, all right, and you stay at a racetrack, and somebody gives you a basic setup and says, okay, here's something to work with, right? So, and you stay there for 1 year and you continually run that race car, you'll figure out how to run a 378. If the conditions are right, meaning ambient temperature and track temperature, you'll figure out how to run a 378 at 320 miles per hour to 1,000 feet. The key to it is that we don't race in the same conditions. So we go to all these different tracks with the tracks have different personalities. We have different atmospheric conditions, meaning we race in Denver, that's a mile high, then we go straight to Seattle, which is sea level, right? So there's all these varying conditions. So in short, with that being said, what's so special about Topeka? It's, yes, we come there, it's pretty much the same, it's the track personality, it's everything else. But, why it works for us, I honestly don't know. But, I'll take it. It does work for Coletta Motorsports. It's definitely worked for me. But, in truth, I really don't know. We should be, if we're doing our jobs correctly, we should be able to take whatever setup we have and adapt it to the next track and conditions. But for some reason, there's something there in Topeka, Kansas at Heartland Park. It just smiles on Coletta Motorsports.
Yeah, actually, it's 4 different drivers. With Hillary Will, Doug Coletta, yourself, and Scott Coletta.
Correct. Yes, 10 wins total. That's very impressive.
We always talk about, and I know it's always brought up, how difficult is the wind up at Heartland Park Topeka?
How difficult is the what?
The wind, because everybody always talks about the crosswinds there and how difficult. We've seen some cars get blown around up there quite a bit, so just talk about the difficulties of dealing with the wind, especially I just drove home from Houston, Texas yesterday in my motorhome, a 40-footer, and it blew me around like a kite yesterday. And I know when you guys are going over 300 miles per hour, what's that like?
Well, in a Top Fuel car, I believe the funny cars are more susceptible to, we're talking about a crosswind, correct? Right. I believe the funny cars are more susceptible to it than what the dragsters are. These dragsters, and again, I really don't notice the wind driving the dragster. These cars are so violent, I can't tell if
what's causing it.
Right, because, all right, picture this scenario. This thing's going down the racetrack, and the clutch locks up at approximately 2.5 seconds, which is just at around half track. When the clutch locks up, it can be an abrupt an event that it just goes bang, and then that will put a lot of torque into the chassis, and then you'll see these cars make a sudden move, right, at half track. They will torque up. They'll make a move to the wall or to the center line
because they grip up there.
Yes,
right?
Exactly. If you can picture that, then you have this abrupt move that you have to be ready to catch. And so and then when you go back, look at the computer, and you can see where this abrupt clutch lockup happened, well then okay, you can relate to that what it did on the racetrack. So with regards to the wind, there's so many things that happen with these things. It's you don't really, when you drive these cars, you're actually driving waiting for something to happen and correct it and catch it. You don't really drive these cars when everything's right. You drive these cars when something goes wrong.
Right, when they're difficult to drive.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
So, the wind, and here's my take on it. We have, when we're driving these race cars, we have a 300 mile per hour headwind. That's what we're driving into. We have a wing on the back of the car that produces 5,000 pounds of downforce. And the wing on the front is about 450, 500 pounds. When you look at the mechanical ratio, the car bows up in the middle and it is planted.
Both ends.
So, in theory, if it is planted and stuck with, let's assume that 5,000 pounds of downforce, a 30 mile per hour wind based on the cross-sectional area should not push me around.
Yeah.
Right? If you think of the mechanics of it.
Right.
But there's so many
by
things.
design.
By design, yes. And this is just theory. Don't get me wrong. Right. So.
What about popping the chutes, though, at the end? And we always talk about the starts, and when you talk about the clutch locking up and the way that the instant traction right there.
Yes.
I think what people don't understand, educated people obviously know this, but when you pop those chutes, and I think this is what got Biggs out of the business, I think, of driving a Top Fuel car, was the stop and what it does to your body and how it tries to throw your inner parts forward. And just talk about that a little bit.
Right. The we have 5 Gs of acceleration. The 5 Gs is not sustained. It's a peak. So if we were to draw it, it would start at 4, go up to 5, and then diminish to the finish line down to, I think it's about 1.75, something like that at the finish line. We pull chutes. If, like, worst case scenario, we pull 2 chutes. 2 chutes on my car at 320 miles per hour is a jolt, definitely. It's like being in a reasonable car accident. The good thing is, first off, it's a relief because you're stopping. Some of these
that's a good thing.
That's a good thing. So, and that's, as a driver, that's what you have to. That's what you're geared up for. Because if you don't feel the chutes hit, then you have to really. There's no margin to sort of sit there and scratch your head, thinking, well, what do I do now? Right? You have to start putting some sort of contingency brakes,
handbrake, and all
something like that, because the last thing you want to do is end up into the kitty litter or the sand trap, because then it becomes a nightmare to clean the thing. So, with 2 chutes, you stop very quickly, obviously, but it's not that bad. What's happened is that over the years, the cars have gotten heavier. Back in Garlitz's and Amato also had the same problem. The cars were a lot lighter, and a lot lighter with the same size chute means you will get more of a hit. So now, as far as I'm concerned, the jolt we feel is tolerable.
Kind of counterbalanced it a little bit.
Yes, it's not that bad to where it's going to be, upsetting our bodies physically. So in essence, like I said, to me, it's a relief. So the chutes right now, a lot of the tracks we can get by now with 1 chute, which isn't too bad. Other tracks, Pomona, California, we get 2 out there pretty quickly.
What the 1,000-foot deal? The traditionalists, they were up in arms about that. If they can't make a track to where you can run, the standard quarter mile instead of the 1,000-foot, but I don't think people miss it now. I think everybody's okay with it. What are your thoughts on it? Well, it had to be done, really, didn't it?
Right. Yeah. Here's the deal, guys. It's we cannot sacrifice our drivers for the sake of tradition. That's what we were looking at. All right. Now let's take. All right, look, let's take Englishtown, for example. All right, let's go to Pomona. All right. So, okay, Pomona, the traditionalists, we want quarter-mile racing. Well, all right, guys, unfortunately, the LA County Fairground, we have no room to extend this. Look at Pomona, and if you look at historically how many cars have ended up in the sand trap there, it's frightening. All right, the chutes don't come out, something doesn't happen, and they end up in the sand traps, right? So, okay, we can't extend this racetrack, right? We can't make it, we've got a road at one end, we've got a road at the other end. We're in, Los Angeles proper pretty much. Right. So, okay, unfortunately, Southern California cannot have a national event now because we can't have a facility to necessitate quarter mile, but we can give you 1,000 feet. Well, sorry.
No brainer.
To me, yes. Now, and that's what we're faced with. So, it is, and as you said, it's sort of, we had to progress over to 1,000 feet because the facilities, the infrastructure is not there, and we can't just extend Pomona and some of these other racetracks. We can't just extend them. And then so what do? We take those events away from those people, or do you come watch 1,000 feet?
Right.
That's what it boils down to, honestly.
Yeah. Easy decision, really.
Yes.
Now, at a time you'd think Connie Coletta would back away a little bit. Seems like he's taken more of the final tuning decisions, more of a hands-on approach here.
Actually, Connie, with my race car, Connie is the
tuner.
Yes, 100%. He is 100% involved in that car. The guy is amazing. Let me just give you a quick brief on his lifestyle. So, he flies into the event. First off, through the week, he runs an airline that operates right now that's flying, I believe, about 26 747 freighters that fly around the world with freight. Employees, 1,500, I'm guessing, I believe the maintenance facility up in Oscoda is
big
close
business.
to. Bottom line is big business, right? People report to him daily on what's going on in the world, what's going on, on the economics of the business.
He's paying attention to the world economy and all that because
everything.
it affects his business, right?
Right, exactly. Everything. So he runs that through the week. Then Friday, he jumps on his plane and he flies out and he comes out to the races. And then as soon as he gets to the races, his business cap comes off and then his racing cap comes on. And then he's right into that race car. He is 100% into it. Yep. He looks at it and makes the decisions, all the tuning decisions. And is thoroughly involved in it. So, yeah, he goes up there and you see him sitting on the fence. When you watch these television shows, you'll see him sitting on the wall there watching the cars. Now, he's not there sitting watching as a fan. He's watching. If you look carefully, he has his phone there with the NHRA app on it. And what he's doing is looking at all the split times. And he's getting a feel for what that racetrack will hold. So, he's totally involved and totally on top of it.
Wow. Is he, they kind of portrayed him as kind of a hard guy to get along with Heart Like a Wheel, the whole movie thing and everything. What is he kind of? Is he gruff? Is he a good guy? Is he want it his way, or is he, just kind of give it a little insight on the personality of Connie Coletta?
I've known Connie. We became friends when I drove the Montana Express. Connie, this was back in the late 90s. Connie would come over. He would help. Connie's very kind-hearted, good. He'd always come around. If you look over the years, he's helped a lot of teams out there. A lot of teams, a lot of people. And, and I was a recipient of that back in the late 90s.
Probably a lot of things that you'll never know of.
Right, exactly. Like, John, the late John Mitchell and I, we raced that car, and Connie would come over. He'd come over and get his coffee Sunday morning. He would look at our computer data. He would give us his input. And so anyways, we got to know each other through that period. That was a 5-year period. Then when he expanded his team, he asked me to come drive for him. And the first couple of years there, it was intimidating because, you're driving for a legend.
Right.
So you're driving for a legend and somebody that's helped propel your career, picked you up, and and what you want to do is try and give that back. How do I try and repay this person? Do the best job you possibly can. And that's what I was talking about earlier in this interview was that, I would go up there more worried about making a mistake rather than worried about winning, and then the mistake started happening. And then, you know what I mean? Because I brought it upon myself just to,
You've got your brain loaded up with all this stuff, right?
Yes.
Right.
So initially it was like that, but over the years, and then kind of, yes, I've gone, over the years, I've gone into the lounge to take my fly suit off there, and he's been up there waiting for me, just absolutely chewing my ass out for something I've done in the car, right? So, but he's good. He lets you know when he's not happy with something, but then within like 20 minutes or whatever, he's back to how he was. So.
So he doesn't have much of a filter, but he's forgiving and gets over it pretty quick.
Yes,
right.
Yes, and he has mellowed out over the years, and now, even though he does do that, he's still very, very good and very loyal to you, and he will help you with whatever you need. So he was voted when we had a survey done amongst our peers where we all voted against who was best crew chiefs, best drivers, this, that, and whatever. Connie was voted by the industry as the best owner and the most owner that everyone wanted to work for. So,
wow, awesome.
and to be quite honest with you, I concur with that. I'm just very privileged to drive for him and be associated with him. I look forward to going to the races and hanging out with him. It's not only does he race, but we have fun. We joke around. Right. It's just a great atmosphere.
He seems like the kind of guy that you could sit around and have some hard ass humor with. You know what I mean? Have fun with each other and make fun of each other a little bit. So he seems like that kind of guy.
Constant. Actually, that happens throughout the weekend.
I love those
every
kind of
race,
guys.
Yeah,
Right.
every weekend.
Right.
Yep.
Well, thank you so much for coming in. Look forward to seeing you out here this weekend. And you're 10th in points right now, so still a long way to go, and it should be a good weekend.
You bet, guys. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Well, we appreciate it. Now, first of all, before we let you go quickly, have
Yep.
you seen the commercial where the Australian guy goes in there, I think it's a radio ad where they're trying to get their way into a bar, and the girl's not going to let him in, and he said, "Let me handle this," and he goes up, "Hello, babe," or whatever. He does his little Australian thing. You're a single guy. Do you ever use that to your advantage a little bit, that Australian accent?
Well, no. Yeah.
I don't know how often you ask that question, but I just thought I'd ask that. You know, RacinBoys has a huge following in Australia because we do the Lucas Oil Chili Bowl Nationals. You know the Chili Bowl, down
Right, yes.
We've broadcasted that for the last 8 years, and we do the sprint car thing. And, and there's a lot of Australians down there that follow what we do, so I just figured I'd ask you that because I know a few guys that use that to their advantage. Is what I'm trying to say.
Well, I don't take advantage of those
Right,
sort of things.
right.
I'm a good, wholesome boy with good quality sponsors in Optima Batteries and Candlewood Suites and all that. So I make sure I represent the companies very well.
You did well with that answer right there. Okay, thanks so much for being on the show.
You bet, guys. Thanks again.
All right, we'll be back with more track talk here on Sports Radio 810 WHB in a moment. Stay tuned.